Hello, my name is Brandon Stevenson, and today I would like to talk to you about a carbon tax value model I've constructed for the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch platform. Before I get into model construction details, I'd like to talk about the motivation behind constructing that model. And that comes down to rising sea levels due to anthropogenic global warming. These rising sea levels pose a risk to a lot of large-scale complex engineering systems that are located and operated around coastal areas such as SpaceX's Falcon 9 launch platform. Some of the best data we have for sea level rise projections come from the representative concentration pathways, which are families of scenarios under the CMIP simulation framework that take into account common socioeconomic inputs such as population growth, wealth growth, and governmental climate policy. Basically, the lower the RCP number, the more we are doing to curb emissions in the future. And speaking of emissions, they are kind of the crux of my whole model, in that I'm assuming CO2 emissions are the main driver of sea level change, and implementing a tax will change those emissions and in return help deflate the potential sea level changes that could negatively affect a system like the Falcon 9. Another major assumption in that is that if we implemented a tax, that any tax implemented would be implemented internationally, or other countries would follow suit behind the United States. This isn't a very far-fetched idea, since China itself is already implementing a cap-and-trade system in 2018. Here are some details behind my value function and main components of the value function. Basically, I'm taking an initial sea level cost and subtracting a future sea level cost in a future where a tax is in place from that to find a cost savings amount in US dollars. I'm not going to go into too many details here for time's sake, except that for sea level cost, I'm taking random normal variables from the different RCP families, since I'm assuming that those simulations, at least the emission part of those simulations, are normally distributed, and the reduction in the emissions amount, the proportion of reduction, is a exponentially decaying function, since I'm envisioning a baseline carbon emission amount that we can't get away from due to agriculture or wealth constraints, such as people needing to use older technology that's fossil fuel dependent. Here is that backbone I was talking about earlier. As you can see, the thick black line is my static projection of CO2 emissions. That's our do-nothing scenario. And the tax effects come through all of the other colors in the lines. Basically, you can see that the longer you wait, the less you can do about emission reductions, and the higher the taxation amount, the higher the lambda in this case, the more that gets done. Here are the results of one run from this model. Due to the stochastic nature of the sea level draws I have to run this in a Monte Carlo configuration. Even with 500 Monte Carlo runs, due to the ranges I'm looking at of 3 different variables, I come up with about 25 million iterations. This takes about 2 hours to run on a unoptimized set of code. You can see that you get some Pareto frontiers, and it's a little bit surprising that there is a baseline value of amount of tax that gains you the best value out of these scenarios. The cool thing about this model is that since it's it's dependent on 3 variables. If you could isolate any one of those, you could look at the frontier of the other 2. So if you knew, for instance, that SpaceX emitted 20,000 tons of CO2 a year, they could then come to the time delay versus amount of taxation and kind of see that, oh man, we should put in a tax quickly, and at least $7 or $8 per ton to get the best bang for a buck. And that is because of the following. Basically, the higher the taxation amount, the lower you're getting in emissions, and it just so happens that these walls correlate to crossing RCP thresholds. In this case, it was RCP 4.5 at $8 per ton. Here is an animation of the value model with the change being change in time. You can see those walls come through. Those walls are directly correlated with the RCP values, specifically 4.0, 6.0, and 8.5. I actually never hit 2.5, which takes me into some of my thoughts I have after running this model. I was pretty surprised at how things lined up. I covered a large range of the RCP projections with my tax assumptions, except for RCP 2.6. I was never able to cross low enough on that threshold at any kind of taxation I thought was reasonable. That could be due to not having as many components as I should have, such as reforestation and things like that. In the future, I'd like to add more components to this, inclement weather cost, economic stimulation or depressions due to the taxation, and alternative energy usages to create your fuel and things like that. Lastly, I'd like to also optimize the code and implement some multi-threading so that I could run higher run counts and do them faster in the future. In conclusion, I was fairly pleasantly surprised with my results. I didn't game any numbers, and just with my initial numbers, I saw pretty distinct Pareto frontiers that exhibited some behaviors I would expect, such as you need to act more quickly and at certain baselines of taxation amounts. I plan to update this a little more in the future. If anyone would like to see the code or any of my simulation data readers, I will have this all available on Google Drive, and I will put a link in the YouTube description. Thank you for your time.